Hello, boys and gals. My name is Carrotface, and today we're going to be looking at to see which one of three Veeronica's broadcast abilities is best. Most of these are my opinions, so if you disagree, please do not harass or say anything mean in the comments, or yeah. Anyways, the first one that we're going off of is Phase. This is also Veeronica's first ability, which she starts with at the start of every match. How Phase works is Phase has two abilities, technically. One is being able to phase through the killer, in which Veeronica can do once every skate. If successfully phasing through the killer, Veeronica will gain resistance 2 and speed 4 for 3 seconds, along with gaining 15% of her battery, which is about 6 or 7 HP. Veeronica also has another ability with Phase, which allows her to rebound off of walls without having to get off her skate ability. However, every time she rebounds off of a wall, she loses 5 HP. There is no cooldown, and sometimes you can just straight up bounce back and forth. Phase is definitely good. It's really good for getting away from the killer, because Veeronica loses stamina pretty fast. However, the only downside about this is that if you're attempting to phase through the killer, you can sometimes get hit while doing so. But if you don't, then you get away. It's kind of like a high-risk, high-reward scenario. Phase is definitely dependent on which killer it is. If it's Slasher, there's a really high risk that you're getting Gashing Wound. Cool Kid, Walk Speed Override, 1x, Entanglement, Noli, Nova, Guess 666, the Lunge, and John Doe with his high 28 HP melee. I recommend using Phase if you have above like 75% HP, as you can get away, and if you do get hit, you still have a good bit of HP remaining. Phase is also good with mobility, as unlike the others, if you crash into something, you just bounce off of it so you can keep on skating. This helps if you have like all of your stamina, you skate and you instantly bounce off of something, which you just keep skating, especially if you're getting chased, where you can kind of get screwed if you're using the other ones. A little bonus that Phase has is it can really help with you practicing with Veeronica, as you don't have to constantly wait a few seconds if you crash into something. It doesn't help too much gameplay-wise, but it does help practice. And it helped me practice too, so it might help you too. That's all I've got for Phase. Overall, I'd say it's really good. As you can see in the clip I just did right there, I phased through and managed to get away from the killer a little bit. He did get me instantly though, but we ignore that. Anyways, let's move on to the next ability, which is Bumper. Bumper only has one ability, in which Bumper allows you to bump into the killer. Doing so knocks the killer back and gives you 15% of your battery. Bumping into the killer also makes it where you take no crash damage when bumping into the killer. And if a killer is bumped within 10 seconds, the killer will not take any knockback. This sounds good, though there are a few downsides to Bumper. One of which being when you bump into the killer, you will immediately get off your skateboard, which is honestly a huge downside if you think about it. Another downside is that when you bump into the killer, it really doesn't knock them back that much. And most of the time when I was using Bumper, it often just let the killer instantly run back to me. I feel like this problem could be fixed if you could bump into the killer like multiple times, but since that's not a thing, Bumper's kind of meh, to be honest. The really only good thing Bumper is good for is helping your teammates. But even if you bump the killer away from your teammate, either the killer's just gonna go for you, or the killer's instantly gonna go for that teammate again and be on their tail again. Overall, I really wouldn't recommend using Bumper. It's kind of a worse phase, to be honest. And also, when you attempt a Bumper, they can still like hit you sometimes. It's happened to me before. It's kind of rare to happen, but it still happens, so there's another downside to Bumper. But again, I really wouldn't recommend using bumper at all. Use it if you want, but I feel like phase would be a lot better. Now, moving on to the third and final one, we have mobile, or mobile, however you want to say it. Mobile technically has two abilities. The first and the main one being after 1 second of you doing a trick, when you land on the ground, you're able to turn freely. Basically, you're able to turn in the air on the ground for a second. No clue if I made sense there, but it can be sometimes good for getting away from the killer, especially because of Veronica's terrible turning abilities. Now, the second one is actually only a downside, being whenever you crash into a wall, you take 3 times the amount of damage. So instead of taking 5 HP, you take 15. There are some situations where the 1 second turning can help, though I don't know if it's really that good, to be honest. It could definitely be good if you're really good at timing, though if you're not, it's definitely the worst one out of the three. And another bad thing is that the whole gimmick of mobile is that you're supposed to constantly do tricks so you're able to constantly turn freely, though if you're constantly doing tricks you might slip up, take a whole 15 damage, and might take even more from the killer, or you just might take 15 damage in general just from like tricking around and stuff. Is that a new word? Tricking around. Another bad thing is that sometimes if you're like beginning to skate, you might accidentally instantly crash into a wall, in which you'll be slow, take 15 damage, and most of the time when you're using your skate, you might be getting chased by the killer. So that really sucks. Overall, I think mobile's maybe the worst out of the three, and it's just not really that good of a pick. So I think the best one to use is phase, as it's got good enough mobility, you're able to run away from the killer. It is high risk, high reward, like I said earlier, but if you get that high reward, then it's really good. If you get the risk, then or if you get like damaged, it's still not the worst thing, as you're still skating. So overall, I'd say phase is in first place, bumpers in second, and mobiles in third. But again, if you want to use, you can use whatever you want to use. This is just my opinion, and people have their own preferences. Anyways, thank you for watching, and goodbye.